In breaking news, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, has done a 180. Why is the White House now admitting that, yes, you are seeing drones, they are real, and the feds are totally definitely going to do something about it? It's not just the mystery drones that can turn on a dime. Apparently, it's the White House stance on whether these drones exist. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. So this has been a really interesting story because Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, right, a White House cabinet level official, has pivoted. In fact, 24 hours ago, the official stance of the White House was that these drones were mistaken identity, that the drones that people were seeing were probably just their neighbors flying some quadcopters, kids unpacking Christmas presents early. But now, he's got a little bit of a different stance. In fact, in some prepared remarks, he said, quote, "There's no question that people are seeing drones," which, again, a huge pivot from just 24 hours ago, when we weren't seeing drones. Now he says, quote, "I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, and technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing the drone sightings." He added, "Some of these drone sightings are, in fact, drones. Some are manned aircraft. They're commonly mistaken for drones." And we've talked about that on this channel where, when untrained people start looking to the sky to look for what they view as a potentially dangerous weapon, it's really hard at night to distinguish the flashing lights of a drone from a manned aircraft. But he said, there is no question that drones are being sighted. And this has been going on since at least November, possibly earlier, particularly on flyovers around military sites. Now, he then begins to do what every federal official does when caught in unable to do the basics of their job, which is blame someone else, in which case he's blaming Congress, who needs additional authorities to address the drone situation. Our authorities are currently limited and they are set to expire. We need them extended and expanded. We want state and local authorities to also have the ability to counter growing activity under federal supervision, right? Now, again, for those of you questioning whether it's real, in New York, Stewart International Airport runways were shut down for an hour after the FAA had a report of drone sightings in the area. Drones were also cited by Governor Chris Christie and former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. So again, the fact is that these are very senior figures they are not going to be people who are going to get caught up in mass hysteria or a social media frenzy. And so the fact that now we finally have the FBI, or at least the Department of Homeland Security, admitting these drones are real is at least the first step, possibly, in countering them. Now, we're going to get into some more details about who and what people are saying. But first, I wanted to mention, one, you may notice that I am a pretty critical voice here against the White House in this case, right? And that's because I don't take money from anybody. And I've been approached by foreign governments to collaborate, sponsors who want me to tone down my rhetoric, and I tell them all to pound sand. But I can do that because I have you guys backing me up. And the cheapest way to help me out is to hit that subscribe button. It tells the YouTube algorithm that I'm a legit creator citing real evidence. I'm not some crazy person ranting on the internet, though sometimes I get a little ranty, but only when the feds can't do their job. The better way to support me, though, if you really want to make sure I can continue to do this and bring you guys the real, honest, unfiltered coverage as best I can, is to support me over on combatvetnews.com. This is my version of Patreon, and we take uncensored combat videos from across the front line, including many that are provided to me directly by my contacts in Ukraine, and we do a deep dive analysis, finding locations, learning about tactics. Supposedly, some of the guys, there might even be finally getting us some footage from North Korean soldiers who are fighting in Kursk. So if you're interested in some of that stuff, and you want to just keep me independent, combatvetnews.com is the place. So thanks to all you guys that have signed up, and the link is in the description if you want to help me out. Okay. So here's a little more details I thought were pretty interesting, right? It's bad. This is so I actually worked in the Department of Homeland Security for about 7 years in their Inspector General's office, where when stuff like this would happen, when there would be an obvious failure of the system, Congress would ask us to go in as a small team with broad authority and diagnose, how did this happen? And usually when you start to hear them say, well, we couldn't do anything. We don't have the authority. It's someone else's job. We need more stuff. This is the final level of cope for a bureaucrat, right? This is where they are caught. They are unable to perform actions that everyone was expecting them to perform. And then they go, okay, we actually can't. We don't have the legal authorities granted to us. We don't have the resources. We don't have the manpower. And this is also something that like really pretty savvy bureaucrats do, because sometimes it's cope. Sometimes they're just complaining to complain. But oftentimes it's true, right? They sit there and go, well, whose job is this? And they go, I don't know. Or you resource us. This is classic for Border Patrol, right? Border Patrol is meant to interdict drugs, weapons, people smugglers crossing the border. They're a law enforcement and almost paramilitary organization. So when they start having to process hundreds of thousands of asylum claims a month, the Border Patrol would often tell us, guys, we don't have the legal authorities, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the physical facilities to process a bunch of women and children, right, and get them into the asylum pipeline, deport them, whatever is necessary. And they're right. And so this, I believe Mayorkas when he says, we don't have the authority to do this, right? And this is actually a huge problem, because the military doesn't have the authority, right? They have the authority to respond to a limited number of like kinetic threats. Like if the drones start bombing people, they maybe have the authority to respond. But even then, right, they'd say, oh, well, it's a terror bombing, so it's the FBI's job, right? So this is a really tough, this is tough. They really don't know who to turn to for this. And it's extremely embarrassing. And this is the problem with these kind of embarrassing incidents. One, the administration is already leaving. So what, pray tell, was their incentive to lie to the American public at first, to say there were no drones? They were seeing things. Right? Like, why, dude? You lost the election already. Like, your administration's going to be bailing. Why not just admit to the public what's going on so that they can plan accordingly, so that they can vote for legislators or vote for things accordingly, right? If these are a real pressing threat, then maybe our legislatures should give the Department of Homeland Security the authority to counter unauthorized drone flights, right? Now, some of the comments are absolutely just preposterous, right? Chuck Schumer, for example, there's a request. Okay. There's so many aspects here that are just preposterous, right? One is that Americans find it hard to believe we can't figure out where these drones are coming from. And they said from a Defense Department standpoint, this is according to Congressman Mike Waltz, who's also the incoming National Security Advisor. He said from a Defense Department standpoint, they're focused on the threat, he means, of bombers and cruise missiles. It's pointing to gaps in our capabilities and our ability to clamp down on what's going on here. And no shit, Sherlock. What a fucking genius, right? And of course, he says that, actually, recreational commercial drones are authorized to fly at night, leading to more activity. But again, this is something where the FAA would simply report this activity. Right? These drones are not meant to be. So this is, again, a red herring saying that, well, maybe they're just a bunch of, maybe they're just tens of thousands of flyers, drone, hobbyists who just happen to fly in formation over sensitive military sites, as one does. U.S. authorities are like, please don't vigilantes shoot at the drones. People could be hit by falling debris, or you could mistake a legitimate commercial aviation for the unexplained drones, right? But of course, the best way to stop these vigilantes from taking justice into their own hands is to actually enact justice itself, right? You have to be seen doing something. And there's a great quote here. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. The director, here's a professor actually from Rutgers, I think, or Ryder, in New Jersey, who's described this response as, quote, a textbook case of exactly how misinformation happens and disinformation happens. He added, quote, when people don't know what to believe, they don't believe anything, and it's a dangerous position for us to be in. And Even more on the nose was from a Republican assemblywoman in New Jersey named Dawn Fantasia. She said, quote, "I don't know who's running crisis communication from the White House, but it's embarrassing," she said. She continued, "We're at the point where I feel like I'm watching Star Search from the 80s. They're just auditioning spokesmodels to say stupid things," right? Another New Jersey politician said the hundreds of reports of flying drones overhead in federally controlled airspace, quote, "leaves a large vacuum of information." And this is the problem that we're into now, is that once you have lied to the American public about a crisis, about something, especially something as obvious and visible as something they can see with their own eyes and ears, you end up in a situation where, do you believe this statement, right? Do you believe these things, right? Is there more stuff here? Because you notice that this was acknowledged in an interview. And again, here's what Mayorkas said literally 24 hours ago. Literally yesterday, he said, quote, "We haven't seen anything unusual." He said, quote, "We know of no threat. We believe there are cases of mistaken identity where drones are actually small aircraft and people are misidentifying them." He added, quote, "There may well be drones in the sky, of course, but those are commercially available. One can go into a convenience store and buy a small drone." He added, "But we know of no threat or nefarious activity." So again, this is a huge switch in 24 hours from this isn't real to something that absolutely is real. And the fact, there's a bunch of aspects of this that should bother you. But the people who deserve credit, honestly, are the local politicians in New Jersey who refused to take the government's denial sitting down and still advocated for their constituents, right? This is what you want to see. You want to see your state politicians and, frankly, the New Jersey State Police, who have taken this threat seriously from day one, as opposed to the feds, who literally just pretended that it wasn't happening at all. And this is, again, a testament, I think, to the power of some of these local politicians who know their constituents, who live every day in this reality, as opposed to these, and I sound like a maniac, but like out of touch bureaucrats. Like if you sit in an office building in DC, it's easy to dismiss drone reports as emails or nonsense. It's way harder when you're a local politician driving and you can look up with your constituents and say, "This is in the sky. This is not fake. I know what an aircraft is." In fact, I saw one interview with a New Jersey assemblyman who literally was like, "I was an Apache pilot. I am trained to identify aircraft because I was one of the pilots of the aircraft." And he actually said, "I stood up my brigade's drone unit. I know what a drone is, and I know what a drone isn't." And he goes, "When the feds come out here and tell me that what I saw wasn't a drone, what my constituents see aren't really drones," he goes, it's just so hard to take them seriously. And again, I'm going to keep you guys abreast of this as it develops. Huge thank you to our Colonel tier members like James Jerling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knutson, Bastian Himling, Brian Kelly, Dale McCombs, James Olnau, and Henry Roussier, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. I could not do this without you guys. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.